Hi, my name is Shelley, and today I'm going to be taking a look at an article that talks about technology and teaching, and I'm going to talk about it as it connects to teaching math and working in my math class in particular. So the article is Effective Teaching and Learning in High-Tech Environment. It's by Jay Copley, J.R. Lupien, and M.J. Chalupka at the University of Sydney, Australia. And what I really liked about this article is that they didn't just get into the idea of whether or not technology should be used in education. They set some principles, and the first thing they talked about was what is effective teaching. And in doing so, they outlined a couple of really key ideas. First of all, effective teaching does something really important. It motivates students to engage in their own learning, right? It's about actually building curricular competencies with our kids and having them drive their learning and become active learners. And they talk about some main principles about what effective learning looks like. They talk about things like holistic application, which is simply, does it apply to the real world? And active knowledge, they spent quite a lot of time on. And that basically ran down to the whole idea of being able to integrate information and skills and things like that, be able to understand it, and then be able to apply it to unique and situations in creative and critical ways. They're also saying that effective teaching leads to critical thinking and good communication. Now, when you look at effective teaching that way, they say that technology can be useful in two main ways. And the first one is for working on experiential learning. So when students can experience the concepts, the abstract, through experience, through different applications of actually playing with and practicing, they have more ownership of their learning because they drive a lot of the choices. They can select one option versus another, and it applies more to them. Okay, the other one is collaboration, and that collaboration connects into communication. So by working with others through online mediums such as Google Documents, working with others within the class, either teachers or other students, and working all at the same time, having conversations or just reflecting later, say maybe in an email or maybe a Teams chat. It builds student ownership by working on their communication skills and working on giving them different platforms in order to develop them, if you will. It talks about the downfall being that technology itself can't assess or give feedback on process. But then again, if it could, do we even need teachers? I'm wondering. So what does this mean for my own practice? Well, I'm pretty excited to read this. And just as I was really excited to watch the video from Mayor, the math class needs a makeover, I was watching that last night and my mind was blown. And I put the two different ideas together a little bit. And I started saying, you know what? I need to incorporate more technology in my classroom in meaningful ways. And that's another part of this article. It has to be meaningful. Bringing technology into the classroom just to bring technology in doesn't make it effective teaching. It has to actually make what the conservative, typical classroom was at least as good as, if not better, or there's no point in doing it. So today, in my two classes, I tried two different things where I really went down to making the question smaller and simpler. And I let the students build the question. And we used some technology with the grade 11s. It's a very minimal piece, but it got used, but it got used in a meaningful way, which I thought was excellent. And it was used in a meaningful way by the student at their suggestion. They're the ones that took it out. So I'd like to actually use that example. So we're working on unit conversions and unit conversions, I sometimes blank out things, and scale. And so I'm like, well, when do we use scale? And we decided after a bit of conversation that we're going to build a table. And it ended up becoming a kind of IKEA style, and then became a pool table. We're buying it from IKEA, whatever, don't care. And so I said, okay, here's the drawing that we get in our booklet. And they're like, and I'm like, well, what should we answer? Like, what's the question? They're like, well, will it fit in the room? Okay, that's a really good question. Why don't we go with that? So, will it fit in the room? And then waited. And they're like, there's not enough information. Oh, I said, what information do you need? And as they started asking for things, they started solving on their own. And it was the kids who really don't think that they can do it that were offering the information. It was brilliant. I was so excited. And we got to the point where we decided that the table was, if the drawing was this many centimeters by this many centimeters, then the real thing was this many centimeters by this many centimeters. And I said, all right, so does it fit? They're like, we don't know how big the room is. I said, it's 20 feet by 25 feet. And they went, oh. Well, how are we going to figure that one out? Well, we need to know how many centimeters are in a foot. And in the back here, hey Siri, how many centimeters are in a foot? I'm like, yes, that is the appropriate use of technology. You don't need to have all of these facts memorized all the time. I certainly don't. I know some really important ones. I know that there's a certain number of inches, and like there's 12 inches in a foot, for example. I don't know all of the conversions, and they don't need to either. And so it's about understanding what information they need, what information they have, what information they don't need, and being able to use it in a purposeful way, and having more than one method. At one point, one decided to solve it in one way. Somebody else said, well, I would have done it this way. And then I asked, which one's right? And they're like, well, they both actually end up with the same answer. I'm like, huh. And they're like, well, I'm like, well, how can that be? And they were able to give me a really solid understanding. I was so impressed. Technology, bringing it down to just the questions, letting the kids drive the questions. I'm telling you, game changing.